What has roots, as nobody sees, is taller than trees. Up, up, up it goes, and yet never grows.
The mountain?
Oh, yes. Do it again. Ask us. No. No more riddles.
No. I want to play. I do. I can see you are very good at this. So why don't we have a game of riddles? Just you and me.
Just us.
Yeah. And if I win, you show me the way out.
Yes. And if he loses, what then? Well, if he loses, Precious, we will eat it. If Baggins loses, we eat it whole.
Fair enough.
Baggins first.
30 white horses on a red hill. First they champ, then they stamp, then they stand still.
Teeth? Teeth! Yes, teeth, Precious. We only has 9.
Oh, it's disgusting.
We have one for you. All things it devours. Birds, beasts, trees, flowers. Gnaws iron, bites steel, grinds hard stones to meal.
Shit, I don't know this one.
Answer us.
Give me a moment. I gave you a good long while.
Time's up.
Time. The answer is time. Well, actually, it wasn't that hard.
Ask us. Ask us!
Okay. What have I got in my pocket?
That's not fair. It's not fair. It's against the rules. Ask us another one.
No, you said ask me a question. Well, that is my question. What have I got in my pocket? 3 guesses.
Answers.
Right.
Oh, fuck's sake, Precious is fair. Oh, shit. Oh, Precious, we're fucked.
We lay under the misty mountains cold, and slumbers deep, and dreams of gold. We must awake, our lives to make, and in the darkness.
Hello, my fellow YouTubers and subscribers, and welcome to my latest movie review, where today I review The Hobbit, An Unexpected Journey, starring Martin Freeman, and was released in 2012 and directed by Peter Jackson. So, The Hobbit, An Unexpected Journey. Now, I did review the Middle-earth films back in 2014, so about 6 years ago. Those reviews are getting quite dated now, and also some of my opinions on The Hobbit have changed, but I'm going to be re-reviewing all 6 films in the saga, so all 3 Hobbit films and all 3 Lord of the Rings movies. And also, I went to watch The Lord of the Rings at the cinema recently, and that kind of inspired me to do this, so, yes. And just to be clear, this review, and all the forthcoming reviews, will be based on the extended editions, because they are the ones I own. I have seen the theatrical cuts of all 6 movies, and they're very good, don't get me wrong, they're all great, but I may go into some of the scenes that are in the extended editions, so if you haven't seen the extended editions and don't want them spoiled, then you might not want to watch these videos, or come back to them. But I would have thought that you would have done. If you're a passionate fan like I am, then you probably will have seen the extended cuts. Maybe not for The Hobbit, but maybe for Lord of the Rings. But alas, I just want to be clear that I do like the theatrical cuts, but I don't own them. I watch the extended editions. They're just more complete for me. I mean, I don't normally go for extended cuts, but on this occasion, for these films, it actually works. So, The Hobbit, An Unexpected Journey. Well, this is the first movie of the Hobbit trilogy, adapted from one book and some additional appendices material. Initially, The Hobbit was meant to be made as a 2-film adaptation, but then after principal photography ended, they decided to, the studio decided to extend The Hobbit to a trilogy. So Peter Jackson and co had to basically use their additional shooting time to shoot more written scenes that they were going to use to have enough to make a third movie. Originally, the two films were going to be An Unexpected Journey and There and Back Again, but then, with the addition of another film, they had to change the structure, and now we have An Unexpected Journey, The Desolation of Smaug, and The Battle of the Five Armies. The third film had its title changed, but I'll go into that when I review the third film. So, as for The Hobbit and Unexpected Journey, this movie, basically the story, is that it centres around Bilbo Baggins, who is Frodo Baggins' uncle, and he gets caught up in an adventure with a group of dwarves who go out to reclaim their homeland, which was stolen from them by a dragon called Smaug, and he has been sitting on this plunder of gold for years, and now this the main dwarf prince known as Thorin Oakenshield, he is he's like the descendant of the royal line, so he's basically the Aragorn of The Hobbit, if that makes sense. He has assembled a group of 13 dwarves, including himself, and Gandalf, and then Gandalf, kind of coerces Bilbo into the adventure, and then all of them go on this quest to basically get to the Lonely Mountain. Although this movie is really the start of that. In this film we see a lot of tensions between Bilbo and the dwarves. None of them really think he should be there, because he's so concerned about his home and his life, but Gandalf is encouraging Bilbo to get out of his house and actually do something with his life. And Bilbo, it's really about Bilbo and Thorin forming a friendship as such, but it's the epic quest, so it feels a bit like the Fellowship of the Ring, if that makes sense. And that's basically it. And also there's an evil orc called Azog the Defiler, who is after Thorin, because Azog actually cut off Thorin's grandfather's head, so he killed Thorin's grandfather, and then Thorin cut Azog's hand off, so Azog wants revenge on Thorin, and they do encounter Azog towards the end of the film. And yeah, that's basically it. So, The Hobbit, An Unexpected Journey. This is a really well-made film. It's very terrific. I really like it. I mean, for those of you who don't know, The Lord of the Rings are my favourite movies of all time. I mean, Return of the King is my absolute favourite movie ever made. I will go into why that is in the Return of the King review, but Peter Jackson has become my favourite film director just because of Lord of the Rings. I mean, if he did nothing else, he would still be my favourite director. The idea of going back and doing The Hobbit, I know he was a bit dubious about this, but you know what? I think Jackson did a great job, considering that they had to really structure this out and almost stretch the story to 3 films. I think they did a pretty good job. This first one, it's not perfect. It's nowhere near as good as Lord of the Rings, obviously, but I really like it for what it is. It does feel very reminiscent of the Fellowship of the Ring, because we begin in the Shire, and then we go on the quest, and we end up in Rivendell, and then we continue on the quest, and then it kind of cuts off from there. So structurally, this one does feel a little bit similar to the Lord of the Rings, the Fellowship of the Ring. It's just not as complex. I mean, The Hobbit was really written as a children's book, and they have tried to adapt it to make it more of an epic, which is fine. But I wouldn't blame anyone who said that this movie is kind of slow. It really is, yeah. This, out of all the 6 movies, could be my least favourite, just because there's not a huge amount of event in this film until the second half of it. The first half is good, and I enjoy it, but a lot of it is build-up. The beginning of this film is a bit long, and I can see why Jackson has done that, but at times, I guess the pacing is a little slow, and I mean, the extended edition of this film is 3 hours long. The theatrical cut was like 2 hours 49 minutes, so it's only 13 more minutes that they've added in, but they could have saved more for the extended cut, so the theatrical cut could have been shorter. That's my opinion anyway. We probably do spend a bit too long in the Shire. That would be my one criticism, but when we get out of the Shire, when we get to the Trolls, the Trolls section of the film, we then start to see it pick up a lot more. It's just the first bit that's a bit baggy, Bilbo baggy, as some people would say. But it is kind of funny seeing Bilbo, stressed with all the dwarves coming to his house and raiding his food pantry, and he's just completely losing the will to live. I remember reading that chapter in the book. It is light and it is funny. It is catered more towards to the children, and I guess it's sort of like a nice comedic moment there, and it establishes Bilbo's character as he's this really sort of prissy, particular person. He loves the way things are. He's set in his ways, and the dwarves have trashed his house. So, you know, I mean, that's that. Martin Freeman is great as Bilbo. They really wanted him. They actually rearranged their filming schedule so he could go and shoot Sherlock and then come back and do The Hobbit, which was really, really nice of them. And that's the biggest vote of confidence you can really get. And I think Martin Freeman does a good job. I think his best performance is probably yet to come, but I like him in this one. We really sort of see him change as a character. By the end of the film, he really has kind of embraced a new side of life, and he really has realized what's important, you know, loyalty, honor, friendship. He really does form a great friendship with Thorin, and I love the beginning of the film where Thorin arrives in his house, and then everybody's mocking him, and they don't really like Bill, but they just think he's just there. They don't see like why he needs to be there. I mean, they call him this burglar, but Gandalf wants him to come because it will do him good to get out of his house, but also hobbits are quite resilient. They're light on their feet. They're small, so it will be easier for him to get the Arkenstone. But we'll get to that in the next film. Again, I love the friendship that develops between Bilbo and Thorin. And when Bilbo saves Thorin at the end of the film, I thought that was really well done. I mean, it wasn't in the book, obviously. I mean, if you read the book, there are going to be a lot of changes to the Hobbit films. But I really like it because it really is the first time Bilbo, you know, establishes some courage, and he really values Thorin as a friend, and Thorin then realizes there is a purpose for this hobbit to be there, you know, and he saved my life. So yeah, it's just wonderful. It's just these wonderful moments. And Bilbo also has a lovely speech at the end of the film where he talks about home, and he's like, yeah, I do think of my house and my books and my armchair, but you don't have a home, so I want to help you take yours back. And I love that. I love the fact that Bilbo realizes that these people don't have a home. I do have a home. I need to help them because, you know, they don't have what I have. And Bilbo finally appreciates what he's got, and it makes them appreciate him. And I think there's a nice emotional resonance to that. I think this film really has a lot of heart, and I think Peter Jackson and co did a great job with the script of this one as well. But yes, I can't deny the pacing is a bit slow. It does take its time in the first act, but it doesn't bother me too much because I can still enjoy it. But I can understand casual viewers being a bit bored. They just kind of want the film to sort of zip into its adventure mode. And it does do that, but it's, you know, not quite as quickly as The Lord of the Rings did. But Lord of the Rings is a much longer story and a much more complex story. I mean, heck, The Lord of the Rings, there were 3 books. And they made 3 movies. The Hobbit was 1 book. They're trying to make 3 films. So, yeah. I really like the dwarves. I mean, yeah, okay, there's 13 of them, so we can't really get to know them individually. But the actors have at least tried to give some kind of personality to each one. And there's some of them that don't really have any lines, and some of them have the odd line here and there. But they all look different. I mean, I at least appreciate that they all made the dwarves look different. So I like that, but obviously the main ones we focus on would be probably Thorin, Balin and Dwalin, and Killy and Philly. Also, Bofa. Richard Armitage is fantastic as Thorin. He doesn't get enough credit, I don't think, for his role. In reviews of The Hobbit, I really don't see enough credit given to Richard Armitage. I think he really is great as this character. He's this kind of rough, gruff dwarf who's kind of burdened with loss, and he just really wants to have his home back, and he doesn't appreciate Bilbo. He doesn't appreciate Bilbo until the end of the film, and I like that his character does kind of mellow out a bit, and every time that the elves are mentioned, the dwarves kind of, they really don't like them. They kind of, it makes their skins crawl, to say the least. And I love the scene in the extended edition where the dwarves are having dinner in Rivendell with the elves, but then they start trashing the place and they start mocking them, and Botha stands up on the sacred table and starts singing, which is actually the same table where the ring was in Fellowship of the Rings. There's some nice little tie-ins to the Lord of the Rings across the Hobbit trilogy, but I really like that. It just shows how much the dwarves really don't care about the elves, even though the elves have taken them in and given them food and stuff and everything. So yeah, it's an interesting, this trilogy really shows the rivalry between the dwarves and the elves, but I think that's a rivalry that really kind of ends in Return of the King with Legolas and Gimli, but we'll get to that later. The action sequences in this film are terrific. I mean, we've got this fight with the trolls, which is awesome. We've got this warg chase, which is not in the book, but I really like it. It's nice to add a bit more action into the film. The Goblins town sequence, which is probably the best action scene in the film. I really like it, and the way it's sort of the camera work is done is really good. Jackson knows how to shoot an action scene. That's really good. And the finale is amazing when they're on atop the cliff and Azog and his orcs and his wargs are fighting the dwarves when they're in the trees, and they're lighting pine cones. They're throwing the pine cones down, and then there's that epic moment when Thorin gets up and he just charges for Azog. And the music is epic. It's just brilliant. And then, of course, I talked about the moment when Bilbo saves him, which is really good. And yeah, the Eagles rescue them, but that happens in the book. Honestly, that happens in the book. And the Eagles are not a taxi service. I'll go into the Eagles issue, later. Because everybody keeps complaining about the Eagles. I'll talk about that in a future review. But I love all the action in this film. It does take a while to get to it sometimes, but, I think it's worth it. And I also like the inclusion of the White Council. So you've got Galadriel, Elrond, Saruman, and Gandalf, who are sort of the four people that are trying to keep the sort of world peace in Middle-earth at that time. Obviously, we know in The Lord of the Rings, Saruman betrays them. He actually sides with Sauron, but at this point, he's a good man. And Christopher Lee was really happy to play Saruman as a good man as well as a bad man, which I think is great. And it's nice to see these characters back, even though not all of them are in the book. We do get to sort of it adds to the world. Jackson has really added to the depth of the story and the world building. We get to see that there is order in the world at this point, despite the fact that things are starting to go a bit darker and a bit more. Evil is coming back, and I think it's a good sort of tension builder. This film really is, I guess, kind of a build-up, and it is sort of just the start of the whole quest. I mean, several complications are going to arise in The Desolation of Smaug, but we'll talk about that next time. The score by Howard Shore is just magnificent. I mean, his score it's not as good as his music for Lord of the Rings, obviously, because, The Lord of the Rings was a masterpiece, and it was kind of hard to really match that, but this score for The Hobbit and Unexpected Journey is really good for what it is, and it probably is the best score of the three Hobbit movies, I would say. Really, really well done. I mean, there's a great song when the dwarves are singing the Misty Mountains song, and then there's an orchestrated version of that when the dwarves are walking across the mountain. I forgot to mention some other action scenes. Yeah, there's a sequence where these two stone giants are fighting. That's really epic. I remember reading that in the book and thinking that would look great on film, and I was right. Peter Jackson did exactly what I thought he would do with that. He's really good with action scenes. I think the songs are a nice addition to the film, and they do capture sort of the spirit of the book. Like, we have the song Blunt the Knives, which is sung in the Shire when we see the dwarves are actually being quite nice and they're cleaning up after themselves. We have a song in Rivendell, like I said, with Bofur standing on the table and he's singing "The Man in the Moon himself came down." I thought that was kind of interesting. And of course, we've also got the Goblin King song, which is in the extended edition. But I really like it when they arrive in the Goblin Town and he's singing "Down, down, down to Goblin Town." It's really quite funny, and I think there's a nice amount of humour in this film. It is lighter than Lord of the Rings. It is more fun, and I think children could probably appreciate this one a bit more. I mean, if they're not prepared to see Lord of the Rings yet, then The Hobbit is a good way to start. And there are some various funny comical moments with the dwarves and with all of the characters. I forgot to mention Barry Humphries as the Goblin King. He is really good. I really like him in his role. And it's funny when Gandalf confronts him and then he slices his stomach open. After the big action chase scene that we have, it's really good. The CGI is wonderful and it looks great, although I have to criticise the film for this. The orcs being CGI is a little lazy, I have to say. It is a shame that we don't have the same amount of practical effects that we do in Lord of the Rings, but the CGI is very good, but it would have been nice to have more realistic orcs. I'll say that. The best scene in this movie, though, is without question the riddle scene, which I had sort of half performed for you at the start of this review, when Gollum and Bilbo are in the cave and they're having this game of riddles. I mean, everyone talks about this scene. It is a fantastic scene. It's actually the first scene that they shot, believe it or not. And Andy Serkis, once again as Gollum, I just love Gollum as a character. He's probably my favourite character in this whole series. Just the voice and everything, the psychology of the character. He's so messed up. I mean, we'll see him more messed up in The Lord of the Rings. But it's so nice to have him back for The Hobbit. And this is really his last cinematic appearance, really. I mean, obviously, this was released after Lord of the Rings. And that scene is just so enthralling. And it's really actually quite sad when Bilbo is about to leave the cave. And then he sees Gollum looking sad and he's about to kill him, but it goes back to this moment which Gandalf says in The Fellowship of the Ring, where he says it was pity that stayed Bilbo's hand. So, because in this film, Gandalf gives Bilbo the Sting Sword, which is later passed to Frodo in The Lord of the Rings, and Bilbo's about to kill Gollum. But Gandalf says to him earlier, true courage is about knowing not when to take a life and when to spare one. And I love that we get an emotional payoff to that moment. Love it. I think it's a fantastic moment, and it really shows that Bilbo is a character. He's not a killer, you know. He wouldn't really kill. He has his humanity, so to speak, and I love that. My one other criticism, maybe, you know, Sylvester McCoy as Radagast. He's not really that necessary to this film. I mean, some people don't like him. Some people think he's awful and he's really annoying, but I don't think he's that bad. I mean, he's not in it that much. He just doesn't serve too much of a purpose in this film. He's there to basically show what's going on in Dol Guldur, which is, again, this is just a build-up to what we will see in The Desolation of Smaug and the Battle of the Five Armies. I think the artwork is just fabulous, and the set design is wonderful. I love the scene also when they find their weapons in the cave. That is brilliant. I also think Peter Jackson's direction is very good. Not as good as Lord of the Rings, obviously, but I think he did a great job. That pretty much concludes this review of The Hobbit, An Unexpected Journey. What do you think? Please comment down below, let me know. And just to finish off, I'm going to rate this film. I think I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. Oh yes, and the end credits song, the Song of the Lonely Mountain. I mean, it's good, you know, I like it, by Neil Finn, but it's nothing amazing. I think the songs for Lord of the Rings are a lot better. So anyway, sorry for that lengthy review, but there's quite a lot to talk about, so I'm trying to keep them down to size. I don't want to make 30-minute reviews of these movies, it's just too long. So, that's my review of The Hobbit, An Unexpected Journey. Please comment down below, let me know what you think, and stay tuned next time when I review The Hobbit, The Desolation of Smaug. So until next time, see ya.